Today, beware the bottom-feeding social influencers. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, one of the latest posts covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Well, if you're watching this channel and this show, then you'll be used to hearing people on YouTube and other social media channels talking about finance and property and other related things. But there are a lot of people spruiking a lot of things. And it's interesting that ASIC has just come out with some guidelines to highlight where financial advice might actually be being given in the social media context. I'm going to go through that in a second, but I want to make a broader point. It's very interesting that ASIC focuses specifically on those selling financial products, but has no guidance at all relating to those spruiking property. Now, I can tell you there are a whole long list of property spruikers, people claiming that if you've got $75,000, you can go and get property investments, and over 5 years you can get multiple properties and be rich forever. Or you can find those that claim the secret is to find distressed sales, and they'll help you do that, and then you can buy property cheap and make a load of money on the way through. Or simply those that argue that if you know how to buy multiple properties against tax, you can actually make a lifelong income for almost no effort. Now, all of those, to my mind, should be under the ASIC rules relating to financial products. But of course, they're not. And I'll also make the point that some of the indices offered out there in property land are completely black boxed. Nobody knows how they're developed, and yet they're taken as gospel. And then, of course, there are a lot of property portal sites that also feed half-truths too. So my question to ASIC is, why aren't you also highlighting the risks relating to the property spruiking? To which I think the answer is, well, they don't want to rock the boat. That said, their comments relating to financial products and services online is actually quite a good piece of work. And I'm going to go through that now so that we can spend a little bit of time discussing what they said and why they have come up with information to try and help people understand the difference between financial advice and those conversations which are not financial advice. And by the way, I steer very carefully to ensure that on the Digital Finance Analytics site, we don't provide financial advice. We clearly say, go talk to a financial advisor, and we avoid particular solutions and product sets. Actually, we tend to highlight the risks across multiple product sets because nobody else is doing that. So, ASIC said, the information sheet, Info 269, is for social media influencers who discuss financial products and services online. It sets out how financial services laws apply to you, and it's your responsibility to ensure that any content you post complies with the law. Interesting observation I'll just make there. That means that there is a law, or there are laws, and it is actually quite important for anybody who's making content online through any social media channels to be familiar with what is required. I have to tell you that many aren't. And they go on to say, Info 269 is also for Australian financial services licensees who use an influencer. You should be aware of your obligations, as you may also be liable for any misconduct by the influencer. And they go on to say, you need to make sure that you are operating within the law. Financial services laws protect investors and promote market integrity. They set minimum requirements and provide important protections for investors if something goes wrong. ASIC monitors select online financial discussion by influencers who feature or promote financial products for any misleading or deceptive representation or unlicensed financial services. Carrying on a financial services business without an AFS license is an offence under the Corporations Act 2001, unless you are authorised as a representative of an AFS licensee or an exemption applies. The Corporation Act imposes significant penalties, including up to 5 years imprisonment for an individual and financial penalties into millions of dollars for a corporation. And ASIC takes enforcement action when it's in the public interest to do it. And I will just make the point here, that includes, of course, all those spooking cryptocurrencies and crypto investments. Many of those are flagrantly working outside the law at the moment. That's another problem. Now, so far as influencers are concerned, they say, when you discuss financial products and services online or promote affiliate links, make sure you understand your legal obligations, including whether you are providing financial product advice or arranging for your followers to deal in a financial product. If you carry on a business of providing financial services, you must hold an AFS license unless you're exempt or are authorized to provide those services as a representative of another person who holds an AFS license. Otherwise, you may be in breach of the licensing requirements of the law. You must ensure that your content is accurate and balanced. If your online post is misleading, you may be breaking the law. And so influencers should seek legal advice if you're unsure of your obligations. And they actually then provided a few case studies, which I actually think are quite helpful in terms of just trying to underscore where the issues may lay. So the first case study example is an influencer case study. First, they talk about financial product advice. The law says financial product advice is a recommendation or statement of opinion which is intended to influence or which could reasonably be regarded as being intended to influence a person making a decision in relation to financial products. You can share factual information that describes the features or terms and conditions of a financial product or a class of financial products without giving financial advice. However, if you present factual information in a way that conveys a recommendation that someone should or should not invest in that product or class of products, you could breach the law by providing unlicensed financial product advice. And if you're an influencer who receives benefits or payments for your comments in relation to financial products, you're more likely to be providing financial product advice because it indicates an intention to influence the audience. And so they give an example. I'm going to share with you 5 long-term stocks that will do well and which you should buy and hold. Naughty, naughty, you can't say that. Intention to influence someone's decision to buy specific products. It provides an opinion about those products, and so it is likely to be a financial product advice. Oh, here's another one. ETFs will make you a guaranteed positive return. Well, that's providing an opinion that a positive return is guaranteed on a class of products. So it's likely to be financial product advice, and it's likely also to be misleading or deceptive. Well, here's another case study. You can invest by buying shares. This means you are investing in a company and you get to vote on the company's management and potentially earn dividends. On the other hand, ETFs can track different asset classes or individual assets that may generate a return, but the ETF provider owns the shares or assets on behalf of the fund manager. Now that one is a description of different types of financial products with no implied recommendation that one is better than another. So that is unlikely to be a financial product advice. Or here's another one. You can save money each week by preparing your own home-cooked lunches for work instead of eating out. Now, that one provides tips on saving money and budgeting that doesn't involve financial products, and that's unlikely to be financial product advice. And then we move on to talk about what's called dealing by arranging. The law says arranging for a person to deal in a financial product, such as buying or selling a financial product, is a financial service. Whether you're arranging for someone to deal in a financial product will depend on the extent of your involvement in making the transaction happen. So here's an example. You promote a link for your followers to access an AFS licensee's trading platform to trade financial products. It's a unique link that can't be accessed anywhere else. You will receive a payment from the licensee for each click-through, resulting in the use of the platform. People that access the link also receive a benefit when buying the products because of your unique link. And they say you're actually involved in making the transaction happen. The unique link benefits you and adds value to your followers who access the link, and that so is likely to be dealing by arranging. Now here's another one. You provide the names and details of AFS licensees that have a platform to trade financial products. Here, there is no further involvement in any subsequent transaction, and this is unlikely to be dealing by arrangement. And finally, let's talk about misleading and deceptive, because it's important to understand that too. The law prohibits conduct that is misleading or deceptive or likely to mislead or deceive in relation to financial products or services. You don't need to be licensed to breach the misleading or deceptive provisions. Any statement you make should be true, accurate, and enabled to be substantiated. If you make a prediction, such as a future return or a level of risk, you must have reasonable grounds for supporting that prediction. It doesn't matter whether or not you intend to mislead people. It's about the overall impression your post creates when it's viewed. And if your post is in fact misleading or likely to mislead a member of your audience, post reaches not the audience you would like to have. For example, holding onto this share in the long term will generate significant returns and is just like depositing your money in a bank. Well, it is unlikely the significant returns claim can be substantiated. Potential product risks aren't explained or highlighted. It gives the impression that the product is safe when it may not be. And the bottom line is this is likely to be misleading. Here's another one. Trading in this derivative is a risk-free way to make a quick profit. On the side, I make dollars from trading these alone. Trading being risk-free is likely to be misleading, even if the comment about how much money was made could be substantiated. This is likely to be misleading. And here's another one. ETFs offer good diversification across different asset classes, though there are still risks that the market or sector that the ETF tracks will fall in value. Well, risks and benefits are mentioned with similar prominence, and so this is unlikely to be misleading. And then finally, they touch on this rather important question. Do I need an AFS license? And they say, think about your content carefully and whether you're providing unlicensed financial services such as providing financial product advice or dealing by arranging. If you carry on a business or providing financial services, you must hold an AFS license unless you're exempt or are authorized to provide those services as a representative of another person who holds an AFS license. And you can find out more about whether you need an AFS license by following the links from their website. And they also suggest you should seek legal advice if you're unsure, and you can also run the risk of breaching other consumer protection and financial services laws, including the design and distribution obligations that took effect in October 2021. And there's a bunch of regulatory information that people need to be aware of. ASIC's regulatory guides are designed to give you practical guidance so you can operate within the law, and the relevant guidance includes the Regulatory Guide 36, Licensing, Financial Product Advice and Dealing, the Regulatory Guide 234, Advertising Financial Products and Services, including Credit, Good Practice Guidance, Regulatory Guide 244, Giving Information, General Advice and Scaled Advice, and Regulatory Guide 274, Product Design and Distribution Obligations. And there's another question that people should ask themselves, which is, have I done my due diligence on people who are paying me, including non-monetary benefits? Because you should be exercising caution when engaging in paid work and sponsorships. You may have to disclose to your followers any remuneration or benefits you receive, and it's important to use a documented agreement and to understand the terms and conditions of that agreement. And so far as AFS licensees who use influencers, you may be liable for misconduct by influencers. So you should make sure that you do your own due diligence if the influencer is acting on your behalf and is therefore your representative for the purpose of the financial services laws. This triggers other obligations, including ensuring they have adequate training and are complying with the financial services laws. And AFS licensees should put in place appropriate risk management systems and monitoring processes to make sure the influencers that you are using are not providing unlicensed financial services. Should have sufficient compliance resourcing to monitor the influencers you use, and consider if you have engaged an influencer to promote a financial product that is subject to the design and distribution obligations, and whether you've taken reasonable steps so that the influencer only promotes the product to consumers in the target market. And they finish off by saying that unlicensed activity can be reported to ASIC on their website or via their phone number so that they can consider appropriate regulatory action. And it's worth noting their little note at the bottom of the page here that says this information is a summary about the basic information that you need. It does not cover the whole of the relevant law regarding the topic and is not a substitute for professional advice. And they also say that you should note that because this information sheet avoids legal language wherever possible, it might include generalizations about the application of the law. And they finish off by saying some provisions of the law referred to have exemptions or important qualifications, and in most cases your particular circumstances must be taken into account when determining how the law applies to you. Okay, so 2 points to make. The first is this is a very important conversation, and anytime you hear any advice from any influencers through any social media channels, you should ask yourself the question whether they are actually working within the law or beyond the law. And of course, if they are working beyond the law, then you should let ASIC know. And secondly, I want to come back to the point that I made earlier on. Why is it that all of the focus is on financial products and none of it is on the property spruiking? Because if you compare the two, there are probably more social media influencers working in the property sector than the investment sector at the moment. And the final point I'd make is that there are a number of quite well-known international influencers who make statements targeting Australians who I think are actually probably outside of the Australian law. And one of the things that is not covered by ASIC here is the question of what happens when international influences are actually making claims that would break Australian law. I think this is a lot more complicated than ASIC has actually shown in this short review. But nevertheless, it does raise some really important questions. And the bottom line for me is anytime you hear anybody on any social media channels offering any advice, be it property advice, or be it financial advice or product advice, or even recommendations that are purporting not to be financial advice, just ask yourself the question as to whether they are working within the law, and then take any advice that you receive from any of those sources with a large pinch of salt and do your own research and analysis, because frankly, the best way to make good decisions, I think, is to do the work yourself. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.